The Central Bank of Nigeria moves to stem key issues around the Naira, and analysts believe the move would impact the value of the local currency. Now, what fundamentals need to be adhered to in achieving this? Emmanuel Onasami, the lead partner at Cardinal Professional Services, joins me live in our Lagos studio to discuss this. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, Emmanuel, really now we've had a whole lot of pouring of reactions following the newly redesigned Naira. Let's have your first take on that, and also the role of the Nigeria Security Printing and Minting PLC in redesigning and printing this new Naira note. It's bringing it back home. But going into the security details and the need for sensitization, we have had a whole lot of backlash.
Okay, thank you very much. And you know, I will just pick the conversation from here to say, yes, we understand that Nigerians are getting to be more interested in the system and they want to be more involved than ever before. But I think this is a step, in my view, that I think is in the right direction that the CBN has made. An understanding, a critical understanding we all need to have is to say that this is a purely monetary policy drive, you understand? No, it's not all about the facade of bringing a new total redesign, you know, but the CBN has to respond to a war that is most likely losing. Remember in 2012 and 2014 when it becomes national, that the cashless policy has to go around. Yes. The idea is that the cost of managing currency within the economy is becoming significant for the government, and government has to then say, since the Nigerian economy is becoming mature with electronic transactions, why can't we move bulk of our transaction electronically so that the limited amount of cash that will then be needed will be required for the informal sector that are yet to be financially included with the technologies that are available. You know, and based on that, you know, the CBN, you know, worked with the money supply of about 3.23 trillion for the economy, but based on the last statistics,
about 2.7 out of the banks.
We can't find 2 point something trillion, you know. So for the CBN, the response is then to say, instead of me continue to print the balance to keep the informal sector rolling, why can't I just do a minimal redesign, you know, and then force everybody to bring back whatever they have within their vaults into the system? So for me, I think it's a policy in the right direction, and if we can get it right, it can help us curb some inflationary issues and also, you know, control some illicit transaction within the economy. Speaking to the Security and Minting PLC, you know, that printed the current notes, I think also we need to start embracing our own, you know, and not seeing ourselves as the devil now, you understand? The truth is that the security features in this new currency are even more improved and better improved than the security feature in the older notes, which then speaks to the fact that the Nigerian Security Printing and Minting PLC have the right competencies to do this.
Now, Emmanuel, I would like to take you on that point of note now, because so many are also asking, there's the line of sensitization for the everyday man to also be able to identify what is the real and valid Naira legal tender that would be. We've not had any information from the CBN in terms of these are some of the identity markers or some of the key details to.
Yeah, I agree with you. A bit of more sense.
We have barely 2 more weeks to go ahead of the December the 15th release.
Yeah, so the CBN has to engage them more, you know, and what we've had in the time past is to say when there's a new issuance of a banknote, you know, there is a bit of sensitization over the media to say these are the critical features and these are what you need to watch out for. I expect that the CBN has something like that in place that will be rolled out in a few weeks, and they can continue the sensitization.
Do you think we have a few weeks to go?
You know, the truth is that the whole currency will still be a tender until January. So yeah, they still have a bit of like 2 months to get the sensitization done, you know, and with the improved security, I think it will take a bit of time for counterfeiting to really be successful.
Okay, well, the note there is also to reduce counterfeit, so this delay might also be one of the strategic moves to ensure that we reduce that as well. But now we are expecting this phase out of the old Naira notes by the end of January. When you look at what plays out with the US government, especially with the Federal Reserve notes, they still remain a legal tender irrespective of when they were printed. And in terms of taking cues from what's played out in London, the United Kingdom, the Parliament notes, the US government as well, and bringing that home now, how do you see things playing out, especially with the collection of the old notes and issuing the new notes and this instruction of the Saturday timeline to ensure that we have the release take good shape?
I would say that the factors driving the redesign of the notes or printing in new notes in those economies are pretty different. You know, if you look at Nigeria, you have a lot of hoarding going on. You know, but you know, in the United States, the UK, what they are doing is particularly improving on the security of the currency. So they monitor the currency, and when they see that activities of counterfeiting is getting more predominant, you know, they begin to change the security features of the notes in order to combat and reduce the possibility of counterfeiting. That is what is going on there. But in Nigeria, we are coupled with the fact that a lot of hoarding of currency is going on, leading to expanded cost of managing currency. So the Nigerian government cannot but, you know, stop the acceptance of the old currency so that the objective of this drive has to be achieved, do you understand? And that's why, you know, and also even with the fact that the U.S. Treasury has mentioned that they are still collecting old notes in Nigeria, you know, the body language is that once it's changed, even when you approach the BDC, they may not be accepting those notes from you again. So from the Nigerian perspective, I think it's pretty needed that we need to understand that the objectives are a bit different when compared to those economies, and that's why we're going in that direction. And
I'll still move in the conversation to the cashless realm now. We have the introduction of the ENAR. Nigeria is one of the first African countries to also have its own CBDCs, and it's been a year, marking October last month, where we saw the first anniversary of the implementation. Now we're expecting a review. In terms of this review and also having a further entrenchment of the ENAR, how do you see things taking shape, really, reducing how much we're trading with cash?
Yeah, and let me just say this, that the CBN needs to critically evaluate the support that needs to be provided to the informal sector that are yet to be financially included when it comes to technology for banking and transactions. You know, and the truth is that you will agree with me that the critical sector that the CBN needs to support, which is the informal sector, they don't get involved in material transaction. You know, they get involved in petty transactions. You want to pay a cab driver, you want to pay mama put joints, and all those transactions are pretty minimal. They are not significant. So it is high time that the CBN begins to reevaluate, you know, the maximum cash that can be available.
And that touches on why they say you would also be monitoring the withdrawal volume.
Yes, so it has to get stiffer. Otherwise, we'll get back to ground zero again. If those measures don't get stiffer, then we go back to ground zero. I'm looking at a future where, you know, the CBN needs to reevaluate. You know, currently we have a 500,000 naira cash per day per individual, but I think it should be more like a per month, because for you to interact with the informal sector, you don't need that volume of cash. So for anything above that on a monthly basis, then an additional layer of assessment form needed to be filled before those transactions can then go ahead. The CBN has mentioned that they will collaborate with EFCC, ICPC to monitor bulk withdrawals, but I think more stiffer measures needs to be done so that we don't get back to this point where we were trying to avoid.
And hopefully we are going to be able to meet that target of 100% having a cashless society.
Well, yeah. As of today, Norway is the only country that is very close to that, but it's very possible. But, you know, there are some drivers of cashless economy, you know, internet inclusiveness, you know, how widely coverage that people have access to internet, you know, and then the level of technology for banking. Manuel. I think Nigeria has done pretty well with the level of technology of banking. And then banking, you know, how many people are unbanked in Nigeria? We still have a significant number of people that are unbanked that may need cash to run.
We'll have to leave the conversation here. Thank you so much for your time on the show today, Emmanuel. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you very much.
And that was Emmanuel Onasami, the lead partner at Cardinal Professional Services.